Hey, Dan, when would we on this? Sorry. Hey, Dan, when we meet on Friday, we're going to talk about two different things. One is Christie, and then the other is how more and and it's that common issue, especially in that. If you talk to you guys, if you're starting off, we actually can help the job. We look at the job, open that side, open the next one. It's pretty much a problem. Number two, we discovered about 2 maybe 3 weeks ago that there were a number of properties that were coded incorrectly on ledger, that have been added to property and on mistake, it's now part of the cost of maturity that is control the property. There are economic impacts of that on positive, on negative. And we can take you all as well. Obviously, there's a lot of number of questions that obvious and income, asset value, and equity value. And that we just saw today. But you know that they're not shocked by that. Special not have not understanding the boundaries probably including so there is some issues, but we'll work through it. We want you to see both of these before we can diversity. Morning and we got everything. You're set to go in 15 minutes. Question mark. Oh.
Why does it still make me admit down?
You're sideways, Michael. There you go.
Afternoon, all.
Hello, Sandy.
How are we going?
Good, and yourself?
Ah, look, actually, very well today. Thank you.
Just give it one more moment and then we'll get into it. All right, everybody. Well, there's probably still some to come, but we'll get into it anyway. Welcome back again, session 2. We've got like 50 people enrolled in the program now. I've had quite a few today tell me that they'll be tuning in on the tape because they've got more commitments or some double booking things. But there's quite a lot in our group, which is excellent. And I think at the moment we've got about 20, 26, 27 on the session. So welcome again, everybody. We're going to start today our really first session on leadership skills themselves as we look at a few different leaders, as I mentioned, Covey, Maxwell, Wooden, Powell, predominantly. Today we're going to focus on John Wooden, Coach Wooden, and cover his teachings. And whilst he was a basketball coach, he's really a life coach, one of the early ones. And I have a real personal connection to the coach in that from the time I was 8, I went to UCLA basketball games, and I went to the UCLA launch of the basketball seasons. My cousin was good friends with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the star center, who went on to become one of the probably 3 greatest players in NBA history. And I met Kareem and I met Coach Wooden when I was 8, and went to every basketball game or watched every UCLA basketball game from the time I was 8 in 1967 until 1975. Didn't miss a game or anything, and went to their first games at Pauley Pavilion, their new stadium, which we're going to talk about. And Wooden is an incredible legend in teaching about life skills, and incredibly legendary coach. And we're going to cover through video his accomplishments. We're going to cover the team, what they were about, what his beliefs were about. We're going to watch in total about a half hour worth of Wooden videos, and then we're going to turn it over to the Pyramid of Success and work our way through that with your involvement throughout this session today. And we'll be dealing with Powell, Colin Powell's stuff on Monday. It'll be an interesting session. He's really a legend. He's an incredible guy. He died at the age of 100 or 101 a few years ago now. And I think you're going to really enjoy it, because in the previous sessions, people have really enjoyed enjoyed the Wooden stuff, because for most of you, you've not heard of him, you don't know him. The most legendary coach in American history, and a real philosopher, and somebody really, fascinating to sort of talk to and talk about. I also have a connection in that his son lived a couple blocks away from me, and I used to see John Wooden walking with his grandchildren all the time, which is pretty cool. Now, I had sent you guys this document previously, but I've updated it because I found one of the links was no longer working, and I've added a couple more, and I'll send that in today's updated email. So this is a link to those videos if you want them, but if you just search John Wooden, there's tons of them anyway. There's also a document I gave you on his quotes, some of his many quotes, which are pretty cool. I love this one, "Be quick, but don't hurry." And he's got just hundreds of them. In fact, one of the documents is called 100 Unforgettable John Wooden Quotes. And I've sent you all those in the diary note today, and I just suggest you save them and have them. So we're gonna get started watching some of his videos, and they're all different. This is called Intergalactic Treasure, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Now, you should be able to hear it. If anyone has trouble hearing it, please tell me, but it should be fine. And we've tested it. We're going to keep them full screen because we don't think there's that much difference in the visuals.
During UCLA's decade of dominance, the Bruins won 335 games. They lost just 22. But for the players, the true essence of their achievement fell into view only years later, as time transformed youth into wisdom. Each title endures as a moment in their coming of age, a living, breathing legacy of a teacher, his pupils, and the era in which they stood as the class of college basketball.
Now, here come the Bruins, led by Walt Hazzard, carrying the trophy, emblematic and having...
It's one of those things where you're not able to grasp it because it was so big.
That's a lot right here, a lot of heart, a lot of courage.
They were always on top, and getting to the top is hard. Staying on top is almost impossible.
People said, well, he won 3 championships with Alcindor, 2 with Walt. Well, yeah, that means he won 5 more without either of those great players. What UCLA accomplished was never going to be equaled. It's never going to happen.
It was just history in the making. They don't talk about me with the 76ers and winning that championship when I was with the Knicks. They talk about me being with UCLA. You're talking about 35 years ago.
When you're part of something like that, it changes your life forever. It was the fans, it was the players that we had, it was the times. What it really was John Wooden. Because this is really someone who is an intergalactic treasure.
This is my little grandson.
Something kind of subversive about how he taught us. We didn't get most of it when we were there. It was flying right by us, over our head, past our ears, and under us.
Only later did I realize that what he was teaching us on the basketball court really start to apply that in everyday life.
Feel the same way. Everything he said on the court has helped us tremendously. The influence it has on you in making certain decisions, how you carry it with you going forward, how you fall back on it when you get knocked on your ass.
And as our children have chased down their dreams in life, whatever it is, I'm always barking out to them, be quick, but don't hurry. Failing to prepare is preparing to fail. Happiness begins when selfishness ends. I'm writing on their lunch bags, never mistake an activity for achievement. The worst things you can do for the ones you love are the things they could and should do for themselves. We love Coach Wooden because he really did give us everything. He taught us how to learn, taught us how to think, taught us how to dream, he taught us how to be part of a team. He never told us the answers. He just told us how to get there.
That's why I had my rule about hair and facial hair. I just took.
I should say just something else before we sort of continue on our little journey is that in America, college basketball is as big or bigger than the NBA, and same with college football. It's as big or bigger than the NFL. And I appreciate here in this country, sports under the professional level don't get much attention, and college basketball doesn't get much attention. But in America, it's just enormous. There's 300 colleges playing basketball every weekend. You know, there's 300 football teams playing football every weekend. And you're talking about 100,000 people at each of those games. And it's just massive. In basketball, you know, you're talking 15 to 20,000 at every game. So it's a really big sport. So when UCLA wins 10 out of 12 national championships in a row and 88 straight games and all the records they set, it is a really, really big deal. It's not some low-level thing. It's a big, big money sport, big issue. And you start to see from his players, and those players you don't know are all legends of the game, went on to become major superstars in sport. They keep talking about how these lessons learned have stayed with them their whole life, and how they've shared them with their children, and that they didn't realize at the time they were being immersed like the frog in the water, that they didn't realize that these life lessons that he was talking to them about, things on the basketball court, were about life and not about just playing basketball. And, you know, it's pretty fascinating to sort of see that.
Number one.
He had this famous pyramid of success, and it was built on all these great virtues.
He wanted to put those values into his basketball team. And he made every one of them study that pyramid of success. And it became famous at UCLA.
Enthusiasm, confidence,
self-control,
conditioning, loyalty, competitive greatness.
All the personal characteristics that he preached to us that we would need in our life to be eventually successful. That's what the pyramid is all about.
For him, it was not necessarily wins and losses, but how he affected young men's lives.
Success is a result of satisfaction from knowing you made the effort to do the best of what you're capable.
And they're mobbing Johnny Wooden as he bows out with an NCAA championship.
The best coaching record in the history of basketball. 10 national championships in 12 years. 88 game winning streak. And maybe the best of all that no one talks about, 38 in a row in the tournament.
He was so detailed that the first day of practice, he literally showed you, gentlemen, this is how we put our socks on, you know, we make sure there's no wrinkles.
He'd start by showing you how to lace up your shoes.
And to lace them up and tie them properly.
He knew to the precise second where we were supposed to be on the court and what he wanted to do instructionally.
Wooden was so basic in everything he did. You could break down film and you knew exactly what they were going to do, but you just couldn't stop.
He preached this pious line of it not really being important to win, but rather simply to get the best out of what you could be. But at the same time, this was a man who was very impatient with losing.
Undoubtedly twice as many turnovers, and we should be the other way around.
There's this perception of John Wooden that he is this saint-like creature and so calm, so reserved. But there's also the side of Coach Wooden that he is this caged tiger.
He could make a player cry with the things he said, and he never swore. Coach's way of swearing, of course, was to say, goodness gracious sakes alive.
When he said gracious sakes alive, I mean, the hairs on your neck stood up. You knew you were in big trouble.
He can't be St. Francis of Assisi sitting here on the sidelines. He's really General Patton.
He has the image of the parson, but he had that rolled-up program, and he would talk to the opposing players through that rolled-up program.
There's a guy from Duke, Bob Verga, who was an All-American. As soon as Verga would come close to him,
Lucia Salmon's going to eat you up tonight. You haven't seen anybody as quick as Lucia Salmon. I can't wait to get him on you. And Bob Burger's going, he said, is that Coach Wooden talking to me?
In 27 years, Wooden's coaching philosophy established a basketball dynasty at UCLA. But it's his impact off the court that resonates far beyond any title.
I carry around Coach Wooden's Pyramid of Success in my wallet, and every time I'm struggling, every time I'm having difficulty, I just pop it open and take a look and review, because that is a foundation for success and happiness in life.
He is a guy that I think as a player I appreciated, 100-fold more after 15, 20 years after I left the program.
The greatest tool that a teacher can have is love. And we saw it at Poly Pavilion every single day. He never took the credit for our successes. He always said it was us, and never said it was him.
I guess another thing to appreciate is that when you talk about systems, and we talk a lot about that at Fletcher's, infrastructure and systems, and we talked about that in our first session, how culture is a definition, is infrastructure and attitude in terms of affecting culture. And when you talk about this and you think about college sport, every year you got players graduating, and in those days they could only play 3 years at most. And so you're winning 10 out of 12 years in a row with players every year rotating in and out, new players, and it's about systems. And these clubs and businesses that are successful in the long term are very systematic. And people who are very successful as workers in that tend to be systematic. They're good at what they do day in and day out. They have a way of doing it. There's a thing in quality, which we're going to talk about later when we get onto quality, and that is that variation, which means changing, creates error, creates problems. And same thing in systems. If you're always modifying them to suit every whim, then you just get chaos. And so when we look at this, we're really looking at a guy who created this incredible system of teaching people to play basketball at the highest level, to grow and develop as people, and to be incredibly successful, and to do that over a long period of time. This is one of his great guards, John Valley.
Enthusiasm brushes off upon those with whom you come in contact. You must truly enjoy what you are doing. Enthusiasm is a cornerstone of the pyramid of success. The other cornerstone, of course, is industriousness. I think that all the characteristics in the pyramid relate to one another, and none of them really stands by themselves. If you just worked hard, that wouldn't be enough. If you were just enthusiastic, that wouldn't be enough. In the last 20 years of coaching,
I'm just going to stop there and say something in that industrious and enthusiasm, the two cornerstones of the pyramid. When we talk about in real estate, in sales, and people wanting to choose an agent, they choose the agent, number one, who they think is going to be the most professional, do the best job for them, industrious, hardworking, and who has enthusiasm for that property. Enthusiasm for them. Isn't that amazing? Because we say enthusiasm 75% of the battle to win a listing. And there you go. They're the cornerstones of this whole pyramid of success.
Coach Wooden's life, he talked a lot about love, and he actually wished that he had placed the word love in his pyramid of success. He felt that that was an important word because it was something that was so important in his life. Love of God, love of family, love of friends, love for what you do. And if you find something that you truly enjoy, chances are you'll fall in love with that process, and that will brush off on others. I think enthusiasm for an 18 to 22-year-old playing basketball at UCLA wasn't hard to obtain. You got to realize that there's probably thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young players that would love to have the chance to play at UCLA. So when you have that opportunity to play in Poly Pavilion under the greatest coach of all time, I think that it's easy to get your spring in your steps, shall we say. And remember, too, that you're competing against the best players at the college level. So if you're not enthusiastic and if you're not working hard, chances are there's no chance for you. Well, I think the two teams that I played on were very different. My first team that I played on at UCLA as a JC transfer included Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he set the standard for everybody. But Kareem very seldom said anything to anybody. He simply played his heart out every time he was out there. He was excellent at what he did, and it was a privilege for the rest of us to be part of that. Some of the other players might express some enthusiasm or sometimes frustration on the court, and it was up to coach to try to train us and see if we couldn't overcome some of those frustrations. And then, of course, he was going to pick his 5 best and maybe a couple more that were going to do most of the playing. So it was quite a challenge to get one of those spots where you get some playing time. Coach Wooden was about as enthusiastic as any coach could be, but he kept his emotions under control at all times. So while he may have seen something that he disliked on the court, you would hear something like, "Goodness gracious sakes alive." And it was with all the enthusiasm you could possibly imagine. I'll never forget one day on the basketball court when I was asked to play a position I wasn't used to playing, point guard, where I was actually doing more of the shooting as a shooting guard. Suddenly I was put out at the point where my teammate Henry Bibby played. And when I was put in that position, I managed to turn the ball over twice in 2 times down the court. And Coach Wooden had left the court that day to take an observation from a higher point in Poly Pavilion. So there he was up in the top seat at the end of the court. But none of us knew when he left the court where he had gone. Well, after I turned the ball over 2 times, I remember hearing from the stands. It was like it was coming out of the clouds. It was coming from God. "Goodness gracious sakes alive, John, throw the ball to one of your teammates, not the other team," when I had made those 2 turnovers. So there was a lot of enthusiasm when he wanted to express something. But for the most part, Coach Wooden was always expressing the positive side of what he wanted us to obtain. Self-control. Practice self-discipline and keep emotions under control. Good judgment and common sense are essential. Well, I think making good decisions is very important, and one of the things that I've learned to enjoy using in my life as a result of this block is the concept of letting your yes be yes and your no be no. And so if you sign up for marriage, let it be yes. If you sign up for the job, let it be yes and do that job. If you sign up for the basketball team, give it all your effort. And when you're teaching youngsters out in youth sports, try to teach them, and sometimes their parents need to be taught this as well, that when you go out for the team, that means you're committed to that team. And for whatever period of time, you're one of, say, 12 members on a team. So I think yes, let your yes be yes and your no be no is very, very important, and anything else is a waste of time. In regard to common sense and self-discipline, Coach used to say, we must discipline ourselves so others won't have to. Now, I had a teammate who was one of the greatest players of all time at UCLA. His name was Sidney Wicks. Sidney had a beautiful personality, full of life, and he believed he was the best player on the court at all times. And during his junior year, actually at the beginning of his junior year, the beginning of my senior year, this was 1 year after Kareem Abdul-Jabbar had graduated, Sidney knew that this was going to be his greatest year ever. And so he was going to do whatever he felt like at the beginning, he thought, and show up to practice with a different look. Now, one of the requirements Coach Wooden had for his team is that we were clean-shaven and that their hair was cut reasonably short and that we looked like a basketball team. He said, if you look like a team, chances are you might play like a team. But Sidney had a different thought. This was the wild and crazy days, the hippie days. This was civil rights era. This was Vietnam was raging. And Sidney was just full of life. And so he decided on the first day of practice that he would show up with big mutton chop sideburns, a big mustache, a goatee, and a big afro. And this was simply not going to fit into the team. I'll never forget being on the sidelines of the court, shooting baskets as we were warming up. This was picture day. Coach Wooden hadn't come in yet. The whole team was out there dressed, and there was Sidney. And I was just seeing this confrontation coming. And I'm going, this is the year where without Kareem, we've got a great possibility here, and nobody expects us to win, but if we have to give up Sidney Wicks because he won't join the team, we could be in big trouble. Well, sure enough, Sidney was there shooting down with Curtis at one end of the Poly Pavilion, and in walks Coach Wooden. And I could see the tension in the air from the sideline. Coach walked straight over to Sidney. He said, Sidney, you know my rules about facial hair. And Sidney says, yes, I do, Coach. He says, but this is going to be my year, and you don't have the big guy this year, and you're going to need me. And Coach looked at Sidney. Here's a 6'9" man and little Coach Wooden. He says, Sidney, we're really going to need you. But he says, you will not be playing for the Bruins if you stay with that look. He says, I have 15 minutes till practice starts. You have 15 minutes to get up into Ducky Drake's office, the training room, and get those facial hairs cut off, or you will not be playing for the Bruins. Now, this is a funny story today, because the next thing we saw was this 6'9" man driving up the steps of Pauley Pavilion to get up into the training room to get those facial hairs cut off. And now we knew that Sidney would become part of this team. He knew it was better not to go a step further than where he went, and that he needed to rethink his common sense as it relates to playing on that team. So we laugh today. There's nothing against Sidney because we've all made goofy mistakes, but that was just one that was paramount, I guess, in my history experience. Well, common sense and judgment is important in every aspect of our life, and every time, whenever you get in dialogue with another person about politics or business or family life, there's times when emotions will rise up, and we need to have our emotions under control, and we need to have common sense. I would like to think that the self-control pyramid block that's on the second row above the foundation of the pyramid is really important, but it's partly a result of practicing the foundational blocks. All the blocks are related to one another, and I don't, again, think you can take one of the pyramid blocks away without considering the others. So if you've worked hard, if you've prepared properly, if you're loyal, if you're cooperative, if you've developed friendships, chances are, if you're experiencing all these aspects of the pyramid, you might express yourself with more common sense. But if you're thinking in terms of your own aggrandizement, is that the correct word we might use here? If you're thinking in terms of your own self-promotion, you might be showing up with mutton chop sideburns and a mustache, but that may not fit in with the team. So I think the point here is that if we practice the fundamentals and the basics as Coach Wooden taught us, and if we have a team concept which he's to express for us to follow, chances are we'll be a better balanced team. So it's a matter of keeping your balance. Initiative. Cultivate the ability to make decisions and think alone. Do not be afraid of failure, but learn from it. Initiative. Cultivating the ability to make decisions and think alone. It's an interesting characteristic because it's asking us to learn to make good decisions by ourselves. But what I found in my 40 years of experience is that I've consulted with people wiser than myself on all the major occasions. And I'll just tell you about the first one and the most important one in my life. I came out of school as a 21-year-old graduate from UCLA. I was drafted to play basketball with the Atlanta Hawks, and that was where I was headed. I'd been dating this beautiful girl whose name was Karen. We'd been dating for 3 years. Coach Wooden knew her well. And I just didn't know what to do about Karen because I was moving to Atlanta, Georgia, a long ways away. And what was I going to do about Karen? Now, this was a free-thinking time, remember? This is when hippies were prevalent and everything was crazy in the streets. And, getting married seemed like a really big thing to me. So I asked Karen, what would you think about moving to Atlanta? And we could live together. And if you wanted to work, you could. Or if you didn't want to, that would be fine, too, because I'll be doing well enough in basketball. What do you think about going there and living with me? And she looked me in the eye and she says, is that your best offer? And I looked back at Karen and I thought, oh, brother, now what do I do? And so I thought about it, and she finished up with this. She says, if that's the way you feel about it, John, why don't you go to Atlanta and play? And at the end of 6 or 7 months when your season's over and you come back to Newport Beach, give me a call. And if I'm still available, maybe we could go out. Well, I was put on my heels with this, and I needed to make a better decision about how I was handling this. As I look back at the way I handled this, it's the most disappointing thing in my life about decision making. So what did I go do from there? I called up Coach. I said, Coach, I need to come visit with you. I walked into Coach's office and I said, Coach, I've got this situation with Karen. I just don't know how to handle it. And I'm going to go off to Atlanta. It looks like I'm going to play pro basketball for a while, and I just don't know what to do about Karen. Before I could get the question out, what do I do? He had his finger in my chest and he says, you marry that girl. And so I thought about it for another month or two, and I went back and I asked Karen to marry me. And it's been a love affair like no other. And I will tell you that we just celebrated 40 years. So the wisdom of others helps us make those decisions, cultivate the ability to make decisions and think alone. But don't forget, there are wiser people on earth that we can go to for help in the biggest decisions. And Coach Wooden, to the last year of his life, claimed credit for the success of my marriage. 2 nights before Coach passed away, my wife and I went in to see him in the hospital. I walked in and I said, "Coach, this is Team Vallely. You know, this is the team that you helped put together over 40 years ago." And I said, "When I was a young guy, didn't know what to do, and you told me to marry this girl." And this big broad smile came across his face. It was so pleasing to see him smile at that time, because it was a very tough time then. And then I just shared with him the other part, which is, "Hey, Coach, what you taught us is second to none. The thoughts you gave us in the Pyramid of Success I've been using for 40 years now, and the challenges and changes that I've been dealt with in dealing with cancer, with my daughter, my own fight against cancer, and making my marriage special, it all revolves around what you taught us in the Pyramid of Success and a personal relationship with God." Another big smile from Coach. Well, I don't know about others, but I've told him what he's meant to me, and Karen has too, my wife. And I know what effect he's had on my son, who has also shared with Coach what it's meant to be brought up in a family that was learning about the characteristics of the Pyramid of Success. And I've had countless reviews from people who have worked in businesses that I've been a part of, who have said your concepts in the Pyramid of Success. You know, when you brought Coach down to speak to us at the business, it was really special in our lives. And so many of these people who through me got to learn of the philosophy of Coach Wooden have used it through their lives and found success in their lives as well. So this will go on for years and years.
Okay, we'll just take a break for a minute. And, you know, all these things about leaders talking to you about their methods, and that is all about trying to personalize it as to what does it mean for you. You know, we can't be anybody else but ourselves. We are a conglomeration of all of the influences that we've had in our lifetime. And when you look at the way you deal with people, it's not going to come from one thing or another, but you can all of a sudden go, well, I really like that concept. And I'm going to incorporate that into what I do. And when I'm starting to talk to my teenage children, I'm going to use that sort of language. When I'm working with a new person in my team, I'm going to share that with them, and maybe we can develop that language together. And then I'm going to pick something up from some of the stuff I really heard from Covey and really like that. And you can see these guys talking about how these various quotes and these various points of the pyramid have stayed with them their whole life. And when they need to reflect back and think, well, things aren't going as well, what do I got to do? They go back to that foundation. And all the things you're going to pick up are like that. They're little tips that you go, I really like that. It's something I could really use. Pyramid of Success, I'm going to keep working through that myself. And, you know, things like that. Any questions, comments before we sort of go into it? This is quite a long one. It's John Wooden talking, and it's pretty interesting, I think, because I love what he talks about and everything. Anyone want to raise anything before I turn it on? Okay.
I coined my own definition of success in 1934 when I was teaching at a high school in South Bend, Indiana, being a little bit disappointed and delusioned perhaps by the way parents of the youngsters in my English classes expected their youngsters to get an A or B. They thought a C was all right for the neighbor's children because the neighbor's children are all average. But they weren't satisfied with their own and would make the teacher feel that they had failed, or the youngster had failed, and that's not right. The good Lord in his infinite wisdom didn't create us all equal as far as intelligence is concerned, any more than we equal as far as size, appearance, Not everybody could earn an A or B, and I didn't like that way of judging. And I did know how the alumni of various schools back in the 30s judged coaches and athletic teams. If you won them all, you were considered to be reasonably successful. Not completely, because I found out we had a number of years at UCLA where we didn't lose a game, but it seemed that we didn't win each individual game by the margin that some of our alumni had predicted, and quite frequently I really felt that they had backed up their predictions in a more materialistic manner. But I was true back in the 30s, so I understood that. But I didn't like it. I didn't agree with it, and I wanted to come up with something that I hope could make me a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision, whether it be in athletics or in the English classroom, something to which to aspire other than just a higher mark in the classroom or more points in some athletic contest. And I thought about that for quite a spell, and I wanted to come up with my own definition. I thought that might help. And I knew how Mr. Webster defined it as the accumulation of material possessions or the attainment of a position of power or prestige or something of that sort, worthy accomplishments perhaps, but in my opinion, not necessarily indicative of success. So I wanted to come up with something of my own. And I recalled I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana, and Dad tried to teach me and my brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. I'm sure at the time he did that. It didn't. Well, somewhere, I guess, in the hidden recesses of the mind, it popped out years later. Never try to be better than someone else. Always learn from others. And never cease trying to be the best you could be. That's under your control. And if you get too engrossed and involved and concerned in regard to the things over which you have no control, it will adversely affect the things over which you have control. Then I ran across a simple verse that said, "At God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed," he cried. "The Master said, thou didst thy best." That is success. From those things, and one other perhaps, I coined my own definition of success, which is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. I believe that's true. If you make the effort to do the best of which you're capable, trying to improve the situation that exists for you, I think that's success, and I don't think others can judge that. I think it's like character and reputation. Your reputation is what you're perceived to be. Your character is what you really are, and I think the character is much more important than what you are perceived to be. You'd hope they'd both be good, but they don't necessarily be the same. Well, that was my idea of what I was going to try to get across to the youngsters. I ran across other things. I love to teach, and it was mentioned by the previous speaker that I enjoy poetry and I dabble in it a bit and love it. And there are some things that help me, I think, be better than I would have been. I know I'm not what I ought to be and not what I should be, but I think I'm better than I would have been if I hadn't run across certain things. And one was just a little verse that said, no written word, no spoken plea can teach our youth what they should be, nor all the books on all the shelves. It's what the teachers are themselves. That made an impression on me in the 1930s, and I tried to use that more or less in my teaching, whether it be in sports or whether it be in the English classroom. And I love poetry and always had an interest in that, and somehow, and maybe it's because Dad used to read to us at night with a coal oil lamp. We didn't have electricity in our farm home, and Dad would read poetry to us, so I always liked it. And about the same time that I ran across this one verse, I ran across another one that someone asked a lady teacher why she taught, and she, after some time, she said she wanted to think about that, and then she came up and said, they ask me why I teach, and I reply, where could I find such splendid company? There sits a statesman, strong, unbiased, wise, another later Webster, silver-tongued. A doctor sits beside him whose quick, steady hand may mend a bone or stem the lifeblood's flow. And there a builder, upward rise the arch of that church he builds, wherein that minister may speak the word of God and lead a stumbling soul to touch the Christ. And all about a gathering of teachers, farmers, merchants, laborers, those who work and vote and build and plan and pray into a great tomorrow. And I may say, I may not see the church or hear the word or eat the food their hands may grow, but yet again I may. And later I may say, I knew him once, and he was weak or strong or bold or proud or gay. I knew him once, but then he was a boy. They ask me why I teach, and I reply, where could I find such splendid company? And I believe the teaching profession, it's true, you have so many youngsters, like I think of my youngsters at UCLA, 30-some attorneys, 11 dentists, 10 doctors, many teachers in other professions. And that gives you a great deal of pleasure to see them go on. I've always tried to make the youngsters feel that they're there to get an education, number one. Basketball was second because it's paying their way. And they do need a little time for social activities, but you let social activities take a little precedence over the other two, and you're not going to have any very long. So that was the ideas that I tried to get across to the youngsters under my supervision. I had 3 rules pretty much that I stuck with practically all the time. I'd learned these prior to coming to UCLA, and I decided they were very important. One was never be late. Never be late. Later on, I had certain things that I had the players, if we're leaving for someone, they had to be neat and clean. There was a time when I made them wear jackets and shirts and ties, and then I saw our chancellor coming to school in denims and turtlenecks, and I thought it was not right for me to keep this other, so I let them they had to be neat and clean. And I had one of my greatest players that you probably heard of, Bill Walton. He came and gets the bus. We were leaving for somewhere and to play, and he wasn't clean and neat, so I wouldn't let him go. He couldn't get on the bus. He had to go home and get cleaned up to get to the airport if he could. So I was a stickler for that. I believed in that. I believe in time, very important. I believe you should be on time, but I felt at practices, for example, we start on time, we close on time. The youngsters didn't have to feel that we're going to keep them over. When I speak at coaching clinics, I often tell young coaches in the coaching clinics, more or less, they'll be the younger coaches getting in the profession, and most of them are young, you know, and they're probably newly married. And I tell them, don't run practices late, because you'll go home in a bad mood, and then that's not good for a young married man to go home in a bad mood. When you get older, it doesn't make any difference. But so I did believe on time. I believe starting on time, and I believe closing on time. And another one I had was not one word of profanity. One word of profanity, and you are out of here for the day. If I see it in a game, you're going to come out and sit on the bench. And the third one was never criticize a teammate. I didn't want that. I used to tell them I was paid to do that. That's my job. I'm paid to do it. Pitifully poor, but I am paid to do it. Not like the coaches today, for gracious sakes, no. It's a little different than it was in my day. But those are the 3 things that I stuck with pretty closely all the time. And those actually came from my dad, and that's what he tried to teach me and my brothers at one time. I came up with a pyramid eventually that I'm not going to, we don't have the time to go on that, but that helped me, I think, become a better teacher. And this is something like this, and I had blocks in the pyramid, and the cornerstones being industrious and enthusiasm, working hard and enjoying what you're doing, coming up to the apex, according to my definition of success, and right at the top, faith and patience. And I say to you, in whatever you're doing, you must be patient. You have to have patience too. We want things to happen to us. We talk about our youth being impatient a lot, and they are. They want to change everything. They think all change is progress, and we get a little older, we sort of let things go, and we forget that there is no progress without change. So you must have patience, and I believe that we must have faith. I believe that we must believe, really believe, not just give a word service, believe that things will work out as they should, providing we do what we should. I think our tendency is to hope that things will turn out the way we want them to so much of the time, but we don't do the things that are necessary to make those things become a reality. I worked on this for some 14 years, and I think it helped me become a better teacher, but it all evolved around that original definition of success. You know, a number of years ago, there was a Major League Baseball umpire by the name of George Moriarty, and he spelled Moriarty with only one I. I'd never seen that before, but he did. And big league baseball players, they're very perceptive about those things, and they noticed he had only one I in his name. And you'd be surprised how many also told him that was one more than he had in his head at various times. But he wrote something that I think he did what I tried to do in this pyramid. He called it the road ahead or the road behind. And he said, sometimes I think the fates must grin as we denounce them and insist the only reason we can't win is the fates themselves have missed. Yet there lives on the ancient claim, we win or lose within ourselves. The shining trophies on our shelves can never win tomorrow's game. You and I know deeper down there's always a chance to win the crown, but when we fail to give our best, we simply haven't met the test of giving all and saving none until the game is really won. Of showing what is meant by grit, of playing through another's quit, of playing through not letting up, it's bearing down that wins the cup, of dreaming there's a goal ahead, of hoping when our dreams are dead, of praying when our hopes have fled, yet losing, not afraid to fall. If bravely we have given all, for who can ask more of a man than giving all within his span? Giving all, it seems to me, is not so far from victory. And so the fates are seldom wrong, no matter how they twist and wind. It's you and I who make our fates. We open up or close the gates on the road ahead or the road behind. Reminds me of another set of threes that my dad tried to get across to us. Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses. You get out there and whatever you're doing, do it to the best of your ability. And no one can do more than that. I tried to get across to that. My pundits will tell you, never heard me mention winning. Never mention winning. My idea is that you can lose when you outscore somebody in a game, and you can win when you're outscored. I've felt that way on certain occasions at various times, and I just wanted to be able to hold their head up after a game. I used to say that when a game is over and you see somebody that didn't know the outcome, I hope they couldn't tell by your actions whether you outscored an opponent or the opponent outscored you. And that's what really matters. If you make your effort to do the best you can regularly, the results will be about what they should be. Not necessarily what you would want them to be, but they'll be about what they should. But only you will know whether you can do that. And that's what I wanted from them more than anything else. And as time went by and I learned more about other things, I think it worked a little better as far as the results. But I wanted the score of a game to be the byproduct of these other things, and not the end itself. I believe it was one great philosopher said, Cervantes. Cervantes said, the journey is better than the end. And I like that. I think that is. It's getting there. Sometimes when you get there, that's almost a letdown. But it's getting there that's the fun. I like to, as a basketball coach at UCLA, I liked our practices to be the journey, and the game would be the end result. And I'd like to go up and sit in the stands and then watch the players play and see whether I'd done a decent job during the week. There again, it's getting the players to get that self-satisfaction, knowing that they've made the effort to do the best of which they are capable. Sometimes I'm asked who was the best player I had over the best teams. I can never answer that. As far as the individual is concerned, I was asked one time about that, and it said, suppose that you in some way could make the perfect player, what would you want? And I said, well, I'd want one that knew why he was at UCLA and to get an education. He was a good student, that really knew why he was there in the first place. But I want one that could play, too. I'd want one to realize that defense usually wins championships and to work hard on defense. But I'd want one to play offense, too. I want him to be unselfish and look for the pass first and not shoot all the time. And I'd want one that could pass and would pass. I've had some that could and wouldn't, and I've had some that would and could. You couldn't. So I wanted that, and I wanted him to be able to shoot from the outside, and I wanted to be able to be good inside too. I'd want him to be able to rebound well at both ends too, and why not just take someone like Keith Wilkes and let it go at that? He had the qualifications, and not the only one, but he was one that I used in that particular category because I think he made the effort to become the best. There's a couple. I mentioned in my book, They Call Me Coach, that two players that gave me great satisfaction. It came as close as I think anyone I ever had to reach their full potential. One was Conrad Burke, and one was Doug McIntosh. When I saw them as freshmen on our freshman team, we didn't have freshmen, couldn't play varsity when I taught, and I thought, oh gracious, if these two players, either one of them, they're different years, but I thought about each one of them at the time he was there. Oh, if he ever makes the varsity, our varsity must be pretty miserable if he's good enough to make it. And you know, one of them was a starting player for a season and a half, and the other was his next year. He played 32 minutes in a national championship game, did a tremendous for us, and the next year he was a starting player on the national championship team. And here I thought he'd never play a minute when it was. So those are the things that give you a great joy and great satisfaction to see one. Neither one of those youngsters could shoot very well, but they had outstanding shooting percentages because they didn't force it. And neither one could jump very well, but they kept good position, and so they did well rebounding. They remembered that every shot is taken, they assumed it'd be missed. I've had too many that stand around, wait to see if it's missed, then they go, it's too late. Somebody else is in there ahead of them. They weren't very quick, but they played good position, kept in good balance. And so they played pretty good defense for us. So they had qualities that they came close to, as close to reaching possibly their full potential as any players I ever had. So I consider them as to be as successful as a Louis Alcindor or a Bill Walton or in many of the others that we had. There were some outstanding players. Have I rambled enough? I was heard that when he makes his appearance, I was supposed to shut up.
Not bad for someone in his 90s, huh? Yeah, I think he was 90 or 91 when he did that TED Talk. Pretty amazing memory and, you know, quote all of those things. He talked about a lot of things, and it doesn't matter whether you're religious or not religious. It doesn't matter whether you know, he's got real Indiana, Midwest American values brought from a real Bible Belt sort of environment. It's not about that. It's about having values and sticking to them. It's that values and behaviors we talked about on the first session about what is culture, what we believe, our values, and what we do, our behaviors. And that's what he was all about. Established values with boundaries, keep the behaviors within those boundaries, and you'll be really successful. There was so many of his philosophy in sport that is applicable in life, and things like, you know, be the best you can be, prepare yourself to be the best you can be, don't worry about the other guy. You know, it's about thinking about going into a listing appointment, for example, or whatever you do in your job, and think, do I have to focus on what someone else does to be the best I can be? Am I going to win the listing because I'm going to go in and know what the opposition is going to do, or am I going to have the best chance of winning by being the best that I can possibly be in that time? And you know, a lot of people study film of the opposition and focus on them, and his philosophy was everybody let them bend their game to us. We're not going to bend our game to them. So we're going to play our game the best we can possibly play it, and let them try to keep up with us. If we focus too much on them, then we're going to alter what we do best to try to suit that environment. And he did, and it was amazing. I mean, the record, so many stats that, you know, stand for themselves. One that I really love in his stats, before we watch the last short video, is when they opened Poly Pavilion in '68. He retired in '75, and in that time he played 180 games over those seasons at Poly Pavilion and UCLA. 180 games. They won 178 of those. And the ones they lost, one was by 2 points and one was by 1 point to their crosstown rival USC. You know, pretty amazing sort of things. And that's when you have those values, when you know what behaviors you want, when you can define your culture really, really strongly, you can get that sort of success. when you chop and change all the time, you don't. Let's just watch one more, 5 minutes, and then we're going to get into the pyramid ourselves. And if this is a bit repetitive, we won't continue with it.
From those, I coined my own definition of success in 1934. I choose to define it as peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. And you're the only one that knows that, you know. Nobody else knows. You can fool others, but you can't fool yourself. And it's like character and reputation. Your character, you're the only one that knows your character. Your reputation is what you're perceived to be by others, but your character is what you really are. I was raised on a small farm in southern Indiana, and Dad tried to teach me and my brothers that you should never try to be better than someone else. I'm sure at the time he did that. It didn't. Well, somewhere, I guess, in the hidden recesses of the mind, it popped out years later. Never try to be better than someone else. Always learn from others. And never cease trying to be the best you could be. That's under your control. I tried to get across, too, that my partners will tell you, never heard me mention winning. Never mention winning. My idea is that you can lose when you outscore somebody in a game, and you can win when you're outscored. I've felt that way on certain occasions at various times. And I just wanted to be able to hold their head up after a game. I used to say that when a game is over and you see somebody that didn't know the outcome, I hope they couldn't tell by your actions whether you outscored an opponent or the opponent outscored you. And that's what really matters. If you make your effort to do the best you can regularly, the results will be about what they should be. Not necessarily what you would want them to be, but they'll be about what they should. And only you will know whether you can do that. And that's what I wanted from them more than anything else. And as time went by and I learned more about other things, I think it worked a little better as far as the results. But I wanted the score of a game to be the byproduct of these other things and not the end itself. I believe it was one great philosopher said, Cervantes. Cervantes said...
It's a bit of a repeat of the TED Talk. All right. There you go. There's some wooden philosophy for us. I asked you guys to look at the pyramid of success between Monday and today and think about these various blocks within the pyramid and what resonates most with you and why. And what I'd like to do is go through those and have those of you that, for example, really liked and resonated with enthusiasm to speak up and tell us a little bit about why that one, in being reasonably brief as well, but tell us, why did that one resonate with you? Why does that stand out? How does it apply to you? Give us some meaning behind it, because we learn from each other. And the thing of synergy, which is one of the 7 Covey habits, which we'll study later on, is 1 and 1 equals 3. You know, if you hear something from someone else, it should lead you to start thinking about, wow, I could apply it that way too. I hadn't really thought that before. And by hearing other people's views of things, it should help you grow in your own views of these various points. And so that's why doing this exercise is a very, powerful one for us in that synergy. And we are in the 6 hats thinking. We're all wearing yellow, which is positive and sunny, and talking about, positive things that this means to us. So without further ado, let's start on the far bottom left, which is industriousness. Success travels in the company of very hard work. There's no trick, no easy way. Gary Player, a famous golfer, said, it's funny, the harder I work, the luckier I get. And I really believe that luck is a byproduct of your effort. So industriousness, who chose that? And please speak up. Don't forget to unmute yourself. No one.
Bradley, I chose that one.
Good on you, Jacqueline.
I think everyone would probably agree with it. So I just think it resonated with me because it's true of us all.
You know, no matter how talented someone is, if they don't work hard to be the best they can be, it doesn't really work. You know, we had a thing when I was recruiting top drawer lawyers in my first law firm, and they were very top of the pops law firm. We could hire the very best graduates. We used to ask the question ourselves, do you think that person got great results because they're naturally smart or because they worked really hard? And we ultimately had this view that no matter how smart you are, if you don't work really hard, you're just not gonna be really successful. And so we ultimately went for people that could prove to us they worked really hard, you know? And we found that industriousness, because otherwise you can get lazy people who they're smart, but they don't really, you know, make a big effort. So I do agree with that. And I think that all of the best athletes, the most successful professional sports people, the most talented real estate people I've seen are the ones who work the hardest. And they've got natural ability, but they really put it to the test by working really hard about it. So I agree with that. Anyone else on industriousness?
Yes, I'll jump in. Jane here. So industriousness resonated with me, and I think that's partly one of my family's values in how I was raised. When I look back, my father, my mother were both very industrious. Having looked over the pyramid, I'm seeing how it's linking to other aspects of me or other points on the pyramid that, and this is, I'm being vulnerable here. I've had this drive, this competitiveness drive, but looking at this, I understand it's quite a selfish a selfish way of being competitive. And I think the industriousness was there as something to prove myself. It wasn't necessarily a healthy thing, but it's certainly that drive has been there for me, absolutely. So it's been very important to see it in a different light.
Yeah, excellent. And we'll talk about competitiveness when we get to the top of the pyramid, and it's not a bad thing. It's how you apply it, of course. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing through reading this.
Excellent. Friendship. Sorry, is someone else?
Yeah, sorry, Bradley, it's Michael. I was just on that as well. I found from a very early age, you know, going through and having team sports and then later on in life and with work, it's always been about practicing, you know, repetitively and hard and getting the results at the end. And so that resonates. And I think every time I've made a change, whether it be a career change or whether it be, you know, a new endeavor, I've always had that inner confidence of achieving, because you know, you do the hard work, you'll get the results.
Exactly right. Well done. All right. Friendship. Strive to build a team filled with camaraderie and respect. Comrades in arms. You know, when I first interviewed with Tim and Rob, and we talked about me joining the Fletcher's business in 2002, I said, well, I have one condition, and that is that I'm only going to hire people that I like and I want to work with. And I want Fletcher's to be a culture full of people that are likable and are nice people. And because I've spent too many years working in big law and accounting firms with a lot of people who weren't nice, and I had no great desire to spend any more of that. So whilst we're not at work to be friends necessarily, it's nice to think that your colleagues are like friends and that you can trust them and respect them. So strive to build a team filled with camaraderie and respect. Comrades in arms. Who chose that?
Hi, Bradley, Anita here. Firstly, just want to say thank you for allowing me to be part of this leadership program. I'm fairly new to being in a leadership role. The information that you've sent is just absolutely phenomenal and mind-blowing. So friendship is something that has been actually a really key part of the team that I've been developing. And I've just found that respect for each other is so important, and just being able to have fun together in a work environment, being able to work really hard, but just have that friendship, you know, where we can really rely on each other and be vulnerable at the same time. So yeah, friendship has been something that's been very important to me. It's something actually that I was brought up with, is just to, in fact, love people, and just to be genuine in who you are, and allowing other people to be the same.
Excellent. Yeah, genuineness and being able to be yourself and feel that you can trust the people around you is vitally important to get good performance out of yourself and your colleagues. Anybody else with friendship? Okay, loyalty. Loyalty is a real funny one, because a lot of people use loyalty not necessarily in the correct definition, but it says here to be true to yourself.
That's one of mine as well, Bradley.
I'm sorry? I didn't hear that. Loyalty, to be true to yourself, to be true to those you lead. You know, I'm trying to recruit a kid at the moment who we think has great potential. He's 26. He's very focused, very hardworking. He absolutely sees that Fletcher's would be a better environment for him than where he is, but he feels very loyal to his directors who have given him a shot. And, you know, it's an interesting thing to test this concept of loyalty. Do you tell someone that loyalty is not important, but then when they join Fletcher's, we would feel as if they weren't being loyal? It would be a real problem, you know? What we have tried to share with them is that it's how you define loyalty. And if an environment has what you need and is the best environment for you to be in, and you choose to just go grass is greener, then you're not being loyal. But if you can honestly put your hand on your heart and look around and go, this really isn't the best environment for me, I can see that there are better environments where I can learn more, grow more, then I don't think you're being disloyal to ultimately make a decision. So it's our goal as leaders is to create an environment where people can't see that. They can't feel that. And I talked to you last time about creating an environment where people feel as if day to day, there's nowhere better to be, and long term, they're making themselves as marketable as possible. And then you should have their loyalty. It's an interesting concept. Who chose loyalty, and tell me why?
I did. I'm going to jump in again. And it's a really good segue, because when I was looking at loyalty, absolutely it resonated with me, and I consider myself to be extremely loyal. But when I look deeper into it, one of the things that I realized is, in order to be able, and this is what you're talking about, in order to be really loyal, even if you consider yourself a loyal, it's about respect. And I find that I'm the most loyal to people that I respect. And they're those people as leaders that provide an environment for me to feel not only safe, but valued. And that goes hand in hand with that loyalty. And so I found in the past that my loyalty has gotten in the way of my success, because I've stayed with people or leaders that haven't necessarily valued me. And so, but interestingly enough, the loyalty for me, I've always viewed as something that I'm loyal to someone else, and I haven't been loyal to myself by staying with someone that didn't value me. Does that make sense?
100%. I mean, that's my point to this young lad, is that your loyalty really ultimately should be to yourself. You give yourself the best opportunity to grow and develop and be what you can be. So yeah, no, I fully get that. Anybody else have a comment on loyalty or pick that?
I actually had loyalty as something that resonates with me just on a personal level as well as on a business level. And it is very true, loyalty. You must be loyal to yourself. And I think part of this was point number 2 underneath the pyramid, was where Wooden actually says that love is one of the most important things, where you must love what you do and love yourself to believe in yourself and be loyal to yourself to do it. That's just how I see it. The other part of loyalty that I see is that you build that team that is loyal to you because you teach them to fish, and you teach somebody to fish and will never go hungry again. and that teaches them their loyalty to themselves. And I think somebody said in industriousness that a lot of this interlinks with each other. So I think loyalty interlinks with a lot of the actual parts of this building block.
Excellent. Well, that's a Covey quote about teach a person to fish, feed them for, life. So you'll enjoy Covey. Anyone else want to speak loyalty before we move on?
Bradley, I had loyalty.
Yeah, I've got one.
And I think,
and thanks, Brad.
There's two people talking. Is that Michael? You start.
Yeah, just very quickly, I had that as well. And I think I almost substitute authenticity in there as well, being authentic to yourself. It's interesting, when I first started real estate, I came from a healthcare background, and it was probably the best bit of advice I was ever given is, be true to yourself and stay yourself, stay humble. Don't try and be the big egos that were around at the time. And I think that really cuts through. And I think the same when you're in a team and when you're leading, being authentic and being loyal to your team. And it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to admit that and learn from others. And I think that's an important thing for me.
Excellent. Keegan, was it you who was trying to speak?
Yeah, sorry if I'm slow coming from New Zealand. Yeah, also, again, thanks for having me on this course. But yeah, very quickly, like I see loyalty in two ways, similar to what Jane was saying. I think loyalty to yourself morally, once you stick with something, what you show, you need to stick with it. So like I've just started managing a small team now, and so sticking to myself morally and who I am is quite important, but also loyalty as a team, I sort of find as a byproduct that if you are true to yourself then, and people respect you and you respect them back, then that loyalty will come naturally. It's not something you can sort of ask for. The same with trust, that you can't just say, oh, I want your trust straight off the bat. You've kind of got to earn it over time. So I think when you've got that loyalty, it makes your job a whole lot easier to interact with that team. Sort of not overlooking your shoulder. You can always get what you want sort of quite quickly.
Yeah, I think between you guys, you've all said a couple of really profound things about loyalty, and that, you have to earn it. You have to give it to get it. If it's not there, it's pretty evident. It's about personal loyalty to yourself as well. And, without being a mercenary, person, you got to look after yourself. And, if somebody is in an environment and they're giving you everything and you can see all the tools and it's a great environment, and somebody comes along and just wants to go above the odds and say, well, we're going to pay you X amount to take you away. It's not what we pay other people, but we're going to pay you that, and we're going to do this. That's when I feel like people aren't being loyal to you. They're just being mercenary. Like they realize that they're just being poached by someone else. But when there's another environment that has actually, you can see that it's going to be better for you, and without question, it's got more things that's going to help you develop and grow. And the environment you're in isn't willing to do that, and they haven't been willing to grow and develop themselves, then you have to show that loyalty to yourself. There's no question. Any last loyalty comment? Cooperation. We're still on the base, the foundation of the pyramid. Have utmost concern for what's right rather than who's right. How true is all that? Who picked cooperation as a key block for them? I'll speak if no one else is going to, because I'm a massive sports person, and a championship team always beats a team of champions. A team full of people who are willing to do what it takes to be the best they can be, to fill in what's needed, is what makes people successful. And when UCLA was in their prime, and you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as Lou Alcindor at the time, he won best player in the country 3 times and broke pretty much every record there ever was. Kareem could have scored 50, 60 points a game in college, without question. UCLA could have fed him the ball every single time down the court, and he had 60, 70% chance of making it, higher than anybody else on the team. But John Wooden's view was that what if Kareem has a bad day? What if Kareem gets injured and nobody else is used to scoring and no one else is used to carrying the can, then we're going to lose. So everybody has to play a role and continually play a successful part of the piece. And I think that's really true. You know, when you look at teams like, at the moment, I'm Laker man, and I've been a Laker man my whole life, and they have made the championship. Starts tomorrow, game 1 of 7, and they've got a team of 2 superstars and 10 okay players. And everyone on that team talks about they know their role. They're a role player. They know what they're meant to do. To give you an example, if I'm John Howard, I'm past my prime. I'm a center. I've won Best Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. I've won Rebounding Champion like 3 times. I can't score like I used to. So when he's on the court, he knows his job is to defend, block the middle up, get rebounds, and if he can get an offensive rebound and put it back in, that's his only role. If he scores 6 or 8 points, but he's blocked 3 shots and he's stopped the offense several times by making them, you know, move away from the shot they want, then he's done his job. He's not out there to score 20 or 30 points a game. He's cooperating with the team. And it goes back to Alan Jones when he coached the Australian rugby team that won the world championship. And he talked about what they defined what each position on a rugby team, if it did it 100%, what would it be? If it was the absolute best, whatever they call them, I don't follow rugby, I'm a guard, let's call it. And they made what the guard role was, this is the perfect guard role. And then they taught the person that was playing that role that this is what we want you to do as guard. These are the things we want you to do. And if you do these really well, they're going to fit in with the guy next to you who's doing these things in their role. And that's what he did. He worked on each person to be the best they could be within that role. And they took over the world at that point and won the world championship. And it's a really interesting philosophy. And that's that thing about, it's not about who's right. It's not about who's in control. It's about cooperating to get the best possible outcome. It's that team effort. It's the Beatles. The harmony that they created by all of them isn't about an individual. It's about the 4 of them. The Beatles aren't who the Beatles are because they had one great songwriter or one great singer. The Beatles, who are they? Because they had incredible harmony and writing skills, and they were a team, and that's why they got where they did. Enthusiasm.
I picked it.
Sorry?
I picked it.
Cool. Your energy and enjoyment, drive, and dedication will stimulate and greatly inspire others. Talk to me.
I picked enthusiasm because I think if you're in a leadership role, you 100% need to potentially have maybe double the enthusiasm of the people you're trying to influence, because if you aren't committed or motivated to do what you're trying to do or trying to lead people to do, they can pick up on that, and how can they possibly be inspired by you to, you know, achieve the next thing or do the next thing that you need them to do if you don't have that enthusiasm for it.
Yeah, it's contagious. It rubs off. It's difficult, though, to always be enthusiastic in times, and you need people around you who are as well to lift you up, and you lift them up. And who else has enthusiasm?
I also chose enthusiasm. And there's a saying that says people don't buy the product, they buy your enthusiasm, your passion. And for me, it's always been about being consistent with that in terms of being passionate about what we do, and just trying to encourage my team to also let their passion shine, you know, forward.
Absolutely. And that's what we say with salespeople, 75% of winning the listing is enthusiasm. I think a big part of leading people is enthusiasm, but it's got to be more. It's got to be more around it. What else? Who else chose enthusiasm?
I also chose enthusiasm, and like the lady before me, I link it very much to passion, and I'm quite an enthusiastic kind of person. And as I was growing up, I particularly noticed it first in the arts, how people in the arts, how wonderful, whether it was a musician or an artist, how passionate they were, and how it lifted how I felt. And then I started exploring how that passion You know, it can be linked to any job, anything that you do, and the benefit of that, because the more passion, the more enthusiasm that you have, it's contagious, and people feel drawn to you. Like as a child or as a teenager, I felt drawn to different music, whatever the genre. And so it's really been a big part of me, because it's something that affects people and brings them a special feeling, a joy. So yeah, I think enthusiasm, passion is really important.
I agree. Who else? Anyone else got enthusiasm?
Bradley, Bradley, I chose enthusiasm and a bit of cooperation as well at the same time. And I looked at my relationships with suppliers. I'm often the middleman with outside suppliers with our company, and I've just used Real-Time Agent as an example. I've sort of always cooperated with them and supported all their initiatives, even when some of the agents haven't been so positive. And I think my enthusiasm has helped agents sort of respond positively to what they've done and suggested. So yeah, that's sort of my thoughts.
You know, I deal with a lot of people at Fletcher's, and you're, fortunately for me, one of the people I get to deal with a lot. And you're always positive. You're always enthusiastic. I know when I call you or I send you an email, the next thing you're standing at my doorway because you'd rather do it face to face, which suits my generation. And we always have a really quick, good chat about whatever needs to be done, and you're off again. You know, and you're not standing around wanting to have a chat about chattiness. You're talking about the work, and you want to get it done, and you're really enthusiastic, and you fit so much in your day, and it's very evident. Others, anyone else?
I had that one as well, Bradley.
Yep, Melissa.
And for me, like you said before, obviously they're all good points under that heading, but I think when things maybe aren't positive or exciting, because they're not all the time, I think the drive and dedication portion of that is so important, because there are a lot of people who, if something isn't going to plan or something is stressful, they're quick to, you know, throw their hands up. I think knowing that they have someone alongside them, even when it's maybe not an enthusiastic and positive thing that's going on, is really important, and to have that be consistent as well. So that, you know, now that I find myself in more of a leadership position, that's something that I hope I am doing for the people around me, because I think that's really important, especially, you know, when it is a leader that you're looking to. If a leader is the type to get angry or to throw their hands up, it kind of deflates the whole team. So I think even if you're being enthusiastic just in being dedicated, sometimes I think that is enough to, you know, serve a purpose.
Agree. Very well said. Anyone else?
I'll go last again if there's. Sorry. Yeah, I think Melissa sort of hit on the head. Like, it's easy to be enthusiastic when things are good, but it can be quite challenging to be the enthusiastic leader when things aren't so great. And sort of one quote last time you said was, "Do as I do, not as I say." So lead by example. Or the other one Simon Sinek talks about is how good leaders lead and great leaders inspire. So using that enthusiasm to inspire people to then sort of follow you, even if times are tough or if they are good.
Excellent. When you think about one of the things John Dowley said about Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, is that he was incredible, industrious, enthusiastic, but he never said anything. He just led by example. He just came into practice, worked totally hard the whole practice, and led by example, always being positive, doing what the coach said, and it goes a long way. All right, let's move up to the next row in the pyramid, self-control. Control of your organization begins with control of yourself. Be disciplined. If there's anything that the UCLA Bruins was disciplined. They never got rattled. They never let the other team rattle, and they rattled the daylights out of other teams the way they played. And I just want to give it one sort of example is that in one of the national championship games, UCLA was playing Villanova, and it was the Sidney Wicks era. And so it's like 1970. And Villanova had 2 7-footers on their team, and one went on to be quite a great NBA player. And UCLA had a 6'11", center who was okay, not a great center, and they had Wicks and Rowe and Bowley and that. And at halftime they were losing by like 17 points, and they played 2 20-minute halves in college basketball, and that was incredible for us to see UCLA getting trounced. And in the second half, they didn't lose control. They played UCLA basketball. They played very industriousness, a lot of enthusiasm, and they came back and won. And they made some adjustments at halftime, stayed within their way of playing, and they won the game. And it just showed me again that whole thing about control, not losing it. They didn't start to just take wild shots. And you know, I was watching the Boston game. I watch a lot of basketball, and Boston just lost the series to Miami, who are going to play the Lakers. And if you're a Laker fan, seeing Boston lose is as good as Lakers winning. Anyway, Boston was behind coming down to the last few minutes of Game 6, and if they lost that game, they're out. And they needed to get back into it, and they just kept coming down the court and shooting three-pointers, not making them. And the only chance they really had to succeed at that point, is they weren't shooting threes well the whole game, was to make twos. Drive. Get your points from the free throw line by getting fouled, or you make your basket, foul stops the clock. But they lost control. And when I said to Ben Williams, who's a Boston fan, and he congratulated me the day before on the Lakers getting through, and then when I said to him, look, you know, I'm not sorry to see Boston get knocked out. I hate Boston, but I'm sure you're going to win a championship in the next couple of years because they got so much talent. And his response was bad decisions, bad shots. And it was. And that's losing that control. And one of the things about leaders is they keep their control as much as they possibly can. They stay within their boundaries of the behaviors and their values. And people around them can see that, hey, if times get tough, I've got a good leader around me who's going to get us through this. And I know that in tougher times, I become more, it's called a sensor, where I become very regimented in getting things done because there's so much to get done. And I focus very much on that. And I try to stay in those boundaries, and I don't get too emotional, and I just stay and I just get things done. And I think people around me have come to know that, hey, when it gets tough, things are going to happen. We're going to do a lot of things and get things done. And that's that self-control. Anyone else got any comments on self-control?
I'll give a go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I take my family as an example. So as many people may know, it's very easy to lose temper, you know, in front of a naughty kid. Why try to really push them to use you know, threatening or yelling at them? It's easy and can get things done quickly, but will do more damage, I think, in the long run. Recently, I've been studying positive parenting to say, really stay calm, you know. Eventually, it's their choice, you know, not use the threatening, but change the wording to say, be calm. Then after you finish your work, you can play iPad. So that's your choice. You want to play or do you not play? So I think that really works and give us, you know, better relationship. So.
Excellent. That's great if you relate it to the home environment. And that's a really big Covey thing, that when you lose control, you lose.
Yeah.
And I know go red, as we call it, when you lose control, you're always having to try to get your way back, you know, because you've gone down a path and now you have to backtrack. And you know, so staying blue, staying in control, staying calm is better outcome for everybody. And certainly you're teaching your children the right way. We need to keep moving. Anyone else got any comment before we continue on with alertness? Okay, alertness. Constantly be aware and observing. Always seek to improve yourself and the team. Now, before I turn it over to you guys, I want to say that one of the key skills and things to inspire people as a leader is to have vision, is to be ahead, to be aware of what's going on, to be looking forward, to seeing what's happening next, to being prepared. And that alertness of what's happening is really, really important, you know. And I can think back to one of my law firms. When I joined it, there was 5 partners in one of our biggest departments, insurance. And they worked for one primary industry, the work cover authority. which deals with injuries and work-related injuries. And the whole game had changed. Like the power had moved from the insurance companies to the authority, and then it moved back from the authority to the insurance companies, and we missed it. And I joined them and at the time when they'd missed it. And I said, how could 5 of you working in this industry miss the next change? How could you not be unaware that the power was going to go to the insurance companies, and with the laws, the way they were changing the regulations? And they said, oh, we just had our head down. We're just doing our day-to-day every day. And they said, let's just call ourselves 5 galloping dinosaurs. And they missed it because they weren't alert. They weren't aware of the signals. When the law changed, they were still totally in the pocket of the VWA, and the law and the insurance companies hated them because of it. So as soon as insurance companies had the power, we lost the work. Who chose alertness as one of their things?
Yes, I did, Bradley.
Yeah. Hi, Francis.
I chose this because I felt like Harpreet and I are constantly talking about ways that we can improve the office and the new tools and things that we can implement for the teams. Some examples are, after the Monday session, we spoke about Active Pipe again. So I'm having a meeting with Beth on Friday to go over that again and see if that would be right for our office. We also talked about with the property management team implementing some new things with IRE. I don't feel like we're using that to its full capacity.
Yeah.
For training and personal development sessions and things that help myself and the team.
Excellent. Your internet sort of going in and out a bit, Francis, but we got about 80% of what you said. Excellent. Well, that's it. That's being alert, looking at what options are around you, learning from others. As John Valley said, you know, everybody's got wisdom and things you can learn from, and you guys have Big Brother being us and all the things that we do, and you evaluate them and decide what's going to work for you. Anyone else got alertness?
I did, Bradley.
Hi.
Hi, sorry for the circus that's happening in the background at the moment. I've got 2 little ones at home. So alertness resonated with me just because that, you know, there's the saying, if you always do, don't know the full wording for it,
You always
but
do what you always
you always get what you always got. Exactly. So, you know, striving to be better is part of that alertness for me, and, you know, bettering the business. Just because it's been done that way for a decade, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best way for it to be done. So that's why it resonated with me.
Awesome. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Initiative. I love initiative. I love that one. I think initiative is the key to most people being successful in whatever they do. Make a decision. Failure to act is often the biggest failure of all. And we're going to talk a lot about ideas and implementation and initiative in Covey, but who chose initiative as one of their points?
I'll jump in if that's all right, Bradley.
Yeah.
For me personally, like taking initiative, I think ties in very closely with like so many of the other pyramids on the table. You know, you can't take initiative without having that alertness or that intentness or being industrious or having that enthusiasm. I really think, you know, it's such a critical element on this table, and, you know, it's part of bringing your most productive, you know, self to work each day. And I think naturally, you know, working in marketing as well, you're constantly trying to stay ahead in the market and innovate and see what trends are around the corner. And I think, you know, it's so important to have that. And, you know, even just since joining Fletcher's, you know, I think one of the things I was always most impressed by and still am is how open we've been to those new technologies and those new systems and those new processes that, you know, we've worked together on. And I think it's absolutely true. And I'm sure we could all point out that, you know, failure to act is the biggest failure of all. And there's probably everyone here has an example of that as well. So it's absolutely important to take initiative and to stay ahead as much as possible.
Good on you, Beth. Yeah. And yeah, your initiative and your inventiveness and your drive and your professionalism, and that has just been so fantastic. Couldn't applaud more. Anyone else pick initiative? Okay.
I did. I think initiative is really important because opportunities are always around, but if you don't take the initiative to take it, you're just going to miss it. And with especially real estate, there's some questions that if you don't ask, you won't get it. So it's really important to take the first step and just, you know, grab that opportunity.
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of people are reluctant to ask the hard questions, but then they don't win the business, or they don't get the job, or they don't get this, or they don't get that. And I always think by showing the initiative and the drive, you have a better chance of getting there. And I certainly, like, you know, I've said to a guy we made an offer to join us in one of our offices in sales, made him the offer on Monday. And I said to him, now, if we put this offer to you, based on what we've talked about, is there any reason why you wouldn't accept that offer? Is there anything that concerns you at all? Because why not ask that? Like, why wait to find out, oh, you know, I'm not that happy with that office, or I'm not that happy with that, so I've decided to do something else. You know, I think you should show initiative. You shouldn't be on the back foot. And initiative is a really broad word. It applies to a lot of different scenarios. But if you don't act, and if you don't do things, then I think you fall behind. Intentness, stay the course. When thwarted, try again, harder, smarter, persevere relentlessly. That staying focused and not giving up. Who chose that as one of their key things?
Hi, Barry. Hi, Bradley.
Hello, how you going?
Good, thank you. Yes, I did choose this because intentness is very important to us. And then, as John Reed said, for almost 8 years, I think focus to do one thing, and I think it's really, really good for us to improve ourselves. Yeah.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah. Prospecting and knocking, and then if you keep focused and then to do these things, and then you never get wrong. Yep.
Yeah, I think for whatever we do in our job, if we don't work hard and stay focused, we don't succeed. And I don't think life's easy. I don't think anyone in this group here would say their job is easy. Being a parent isn't easy. Being a person and staying healthy isn't easy. Dealing with COVID isn't easy. You know, and you just have to choose to be someone who's in the game, staying in the game, doing things to stay the course. And you know, you guys know I write books. I've been writing another one, and it's just on that point really. The whole section I've just written is about that staying the course no matter what's thrown at you. Anyone else on that intentness before we move on?
I did quickly. For me, sometimes you can be doing something, you're on the right path, and you hit a brick wall. But to get over the wall, you just got to maybe do it a different way. Zig a little bit, zag, and just change something a little bit sometimes. So you've just got to keep going at it, because sometimes you're nearly there, but you don't realize that you're there. You just got to tweak one or two little things. So you've got to sort of keep at it.
Very true. And, you know, I say that to a lot of people. If you're doing the right things, you usually get the right results. And then, you know, I look at you and Michelle, and you're doing the right things, and then we get a terrible market swing, and then we get COVID, and, you know, it can throw your confidence. It can throw but if you're doing the right thing and you're doing it well, doing the right things outstandingly well is one of the key success factors for all of us. Doing the right things outstandingly well, you know, choose the right things to do and do them well. Makes the difference, you know. And it's interesting because if you look at a Tim Heaviside, who's the legend of doing things well, Tim stays on a pretty tight formula. You know, he's not throwing in 100 new bells and whistles all the time. He does this, and he does it really, really well. He stays very, very focused on it. And no matter what's thrown at him, he stays focused on it. It's interesting because I ran my first second law firm, that one of the partners said to me at the end of 6 years when I was leaving, and I took this firm from minus 70,000 per partner to over 700,000 per partner in income, and really changed the whole firm in every way imaginable. And he said, you know, what I admired most about you is that no matter what was thrown at you, no matter what we threw at you, you just stayed focused. You stayed the course. You did what you told us you were going to do, and you never stopped doing it. And you just stayed on that no matter what. You just stayed on it. And I think that's a key for a lot of us in a lot of things, is that, yes, you have to be inventive, you got to initiate things and change, but you've got to have that. You're on a freeway and you got to stay in there, because if you go off the end of the freeway, you're done. You know, if you just go off the sides, you're out of it. So got to stay on that road and stay that course. The next one up on the next level of the pyramid is condition. Ability may get you to the top, but character keeps you there. Mental, moral, and physical. Staying power is what he's talking about, you know, that hard work and that ability to stay there. Who chose condition as one of their key points? If no one has, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, because I've watched a lot of people go up in their sales numbers a lot, and then they go back down, and they go like that, and maybe they come back again, and they go down. It's really, really hard in anything to stay focused and stay at the level you're at. And I'm no different as leader. I go through periods where I'm, you know, everything's too hard, and you know, ask Sarah, she knows that. And I get really frustrated when I don't understand something about technology or something. It's difficult to stay at the top. It's difficult to keep that mental, moral, physical, everything going for you to be able to do that. And, you know, again, that's why we have to admire somebody like Tim Heaviside so much for his ability to stay focused. And Pablo wants to help present. He's woken up from his nap. You know, to stay at the top, to be your best all the time is really not that easy. And with all the changes that are happening all the time with technology, and think about in the last 2 years how much we've evolved, Fletcher's, technology-wise. What if you didn't evolve with it? Or what if you worked there 2 years ago and you came back now, you'd be going, this isn't the same place. Because you've got to keep adapting and changing. And condition these days is not just about your own, but it's about how well you adapt to all the change. Because if you don't adapt to it well, you can't stay at the top. And things are changing so fast in this world. All right, skill.
Brady, I wonder if I could just maybe jump in there. So the division that I lead actually went through quite a year, and in the beginning of this year we were told that the division was going to be sold. And so I had a team of people that felt it was very, very stressful. Nevertheless, it turns out that the sale fell through, and we're moving along, continuing with the business.
Yeah.
And that was quite challenging in that I've always been passionate about the industry that we're in and what we do. And it's been quite interesting to try and keep everyone at that level where we're still very fully engaged and really just driven and passionate about what we're delivering to our clients and that as well. And so rightly, as you said, it is difficult to always stay at that place, especially when you've got some serious challenges that are thrown at you. But it's been an incredibly amazing learning opportunity in that as well. And I find that challenges can teach us so much when things look different to what you would normally have, you know, in life. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting time, and yeah, certainly very challenging.
Well, that leads us into our next one very well, and about skill, which is what a leader learns after you've learned it all is what counts the most. And what you're saying is that the change conditions and opportunities and threats that are out there make you grow and make you start to look at things differently. And I mean, the whole world right now is changing their skill level because of COVID. And we're all having to grow and do things differently and live in a different environment. And everything we do is different. And that's come out of adversity. And if we ever stop learning, we just die. You know, you got to keep growing, and you got to keep learning. You got to keep going into unknown paths. Who chose skill as their thing? Well, I'll talk a little bit before we move on to the next one, just briefly, and that skill is something, you know, that is a really broad word again, but it's all those things we need to do to be successful. And sometimes we need to learn new things. We need to learn new technologies. We need to adopt ourselves how we do things. We need to innovate. We have to keep all these permits and logs, and Sarah and Nelson and Jeremy and I have been working on a new system so it's easier for people to do it. And it might have already come out by email, or it'll come out tomorrow to make it easier for everyone. And we're just innovating and growing. All right, how do we do this? You know, we've had to grow so much as leaders in the last 6 months to run Fletcher's completely differently and from home, and all the things we've had to do are things we wouldn't have done before. And that's that adversity creates change, makes you do things, grow, and it's good, healthy. We don't always like it, but it keeps us young in a way too. Team spirit. The star of the team is the team. We supersedes me, or as they always say, there's no I in team. Who chose team spirit as one of their key points?
I had that one.
Go ahead.
For me, that's something that I definitely believe. I think when I saw this though on the pyramid, I thought it's probably, in the case of, you know, in a work sense, it's probably something that I would like everyone to believe, and I'm sure everyone does to an extent, but I think it could perhaps be demonstrated better, especially in real estate, where you do tend to have, you know, it sounds bad, but there are tiers of success determined by, you know, income or number of sales or whatever it might be. I think often that can be focused on more so than the team as a whole, especially when you look at, you know, really successful agents. To be really successful, most of them have multiple people working with them as part of a team that allow them to reach that level of success, you know, in an administration sense. And I think that's something that, you know, I believe it, but I would really love to see, I know, you know, the office I work at, I would love to see that be something that was perhaps embraced more consistently.
Yeah. Again, you know, I'm sure others have to say something, but, you know, again, I'm going to go back to Team Heavyside. Tim's really driven, but he's got a whole team of people that work with them, and they all have team goals and they have team rewards. And he always talks about the team whenever he's, you know, winning an award or anything. He talks about, I couldn't do it without the team. I'm just the leader of the band, but I've got the whole band behind me. You know, they set goals, and if they achieve them, they go on ski trips, they go to New Zealand, they go overseas, they, you know, do all sorts of things because it is a team. And, you know, I agree with that wholeheartedly. Anyone else on team spirit?
Bradley.
Sorry, go.
Sorry, it's Mike. I had that as well. And I think just in day to day, you know, helping each other out, you know, with opens and auctions and, you know, interacting in the office with training and all sorts of things. And even just taking on some of the changes that the organisation implements. I think you mentioned on Monday that you know, you need everybody on board to have that change, and I think that's part of looking at the bigger picture of the overall team rather than the individual.
Yeah, and having people like yourself and you know, others in the team who put the team ahead of themselves makes a huge difference. You know, and you know, I resisted Fletcher's becoming a culture of individuals who just are mercenary, whatever. And, you know, financially, there's firms out there that are probably more successful, but culturally, they're stabbing each other in the back. It's a hard place. It's them, you know, winners and losers. And I never wanted that. I didn't want that for Fletcher's. I didn't want that for our culture. I wanted to be an environment where our leaders helped everyone else. The people that are doing better showed why they're doing better. We started very early culturally changing it all by, you know, when I first got to Fletcher's, we had 27 people in the sales team and 3 were 50% of the total fees written. Think about that for a minute. 3 people wrote 50% of the fees, and the other 24 wrote 50% between them. So we had 3 very dominant people, 3 of which weren't acting very nicely at the time, 2 of which I got rid of. 1 we still have, and he became a much better corporate citizen and a team player with my influence, and he stayed, and he's been with us for a long time, David Taylor. But at the time, we had 1 in each of the 3 offices, and they were just absolute monsters compared to everybody else. And I didn't want that, and I tamed them. And you guys find this maybe hard to believe or not, but I called the 3 of them into the boardroom, meeting room at Fletcher's when I was there for maybe a month or 2, and it sorted it out. And I called the 3 of them in, and I said, I know you guys are really important financially, but I'm telling you now, within 12 months, you won't be, because I'm going to build up the rest of the team. And if you're not good corporate citizens and team players, you won't be here after that time. And right now, I can't fire you, but I'll fire you soon. So either become a nicer person and start doing what I need you to do as helping others and whatever, or piss off. And 2 of them did. So what? We wrote more business. You know, one of them was in an office that was writing about 600 or 700, and he was writing 5 of that. And I fired him and that whole office because he hired everybody and they were pretty horrible. And by the time I'd fired them all, I'd had a whole new team of people ready to come in. They got fired and left on Friday, and on Saturday a new team started. And we wrote 750 in our first year with the new team. Nice team, nice people, many of which were with us for many, many years. And yeah, team always wins out. All right, let's move up to poise, our next level of the pyramid. We're getting to the fine points now. So we've got poise, be yourself. Don't be thrown off by events, whether good or bad. That's staying in that true north for yourself, being in that blue zone, being in what you are. And that's, again, one of the things that would characterize UCLA basketball team was poise. They never panicked. And when they ultimately lost a close game, it was unbelievable that they lost because they always seemed to win close games, you know, always pulled it out. And but every once in a while they didn't, you know, in that incredible run they had. Poise is critical. Who picked poise as one of the key points for them?
Yeah, I got onto that one. I'm not sure whether it's being a Kiwi, always growing up watching the All Blacks come back at the 80th minute. Sorry to all the Australian rugby fans, but yeah, it's something I've definitely learned from my old man, and it was very clear before when you were talking about like staying in that lane that you just, you know, when the time gets tough, the worst thing you can do is sort of jump about and just actually stick to your guns. And you know, I think what he talked about it before is that like you can lose well and you can win poorly, sort of thing. So if you put in your best effort and you still lose, then it's not necessarily due to a fault of your own at that short sight.
Exactly right. You know, I coached baseball and basketball with little kids for many, many years, my kids, and I'm all for all the wooden philosophy, and I pushed it really hard, and we tried super hard. And the moment we didn't win the game, I was completely, great game, guys. You really tried hard. You did your best. We can't win every game. It's fantastic. What a great effort, you know. And I really believe that. And you got to stay yourself. You got to be true to it. Who else picked poise?
I did, Bradley.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. We had this discussion last week. We're doing a Chris Helder training, and in one of his chapters, he talks about acting as if. And I was talking about how going into a listing presentation, you could have a really crap day beforehand. You could have all sorts of things go wrong. But you really need to maintain that poise. You really need to maintain that level-headedness and not let the emotion and those other things interfere and come across as negative energy in that instance. And I think that's really critical with all interactions. So that's one I had there.
I agree completely. All right, confidence. Wow, what a big word that is. The strongest steel is well-founded self-belief. It is earned, it's not given. Self-confidence is just everything. Self-doubt is just the killer. Who picked confidence as one of their key points?
I did, Bradley. Sandy.
Hi, Sandy. Yeah, go ahead.
It was a personal thing for me. I started a journey at the beginning of the year to be the best version of me that I could possibly be. And I think that that's really important, to be the best version of yourself, because when you are on a physical, mental and emotional level, that actually shines through with everything that you do.
Yeah.
You hold yourself in great stead.
I always say, one of my things that I say to myself all the time, and I just actually wrote it again in a new chapter of a book I'm writing, was that the measure of a person is what they do when no one's watching. And that, you know, confidence to be yourself and the confidence to do the right thing. And, you know, if I have this thing myself, you know, if I see something that's out of place, I put it in the right place. If I see something wrong, I try to fix it. If I'm going to do something, I'm going to try to do it to the best I can do it, or what's reasonable in that circumstance that should be done, you know, always. And, you know, if I'm walking through the garden and I see a little piece of rubbish, I'll go out of my way to pick it up and throw it away. And not because I'm obsessive, but because I want the garden to look as good as it can look. And, you know, I always think that. And I think that's a confidence thing, that people who have confidence want to be their best. They want to do their best. They want the people around them to be their best. You know, it's people who lack that self-confidence, who put other people down, who are the bullies, and who are the people who don't want their team to succeed because it comes at their expense and whatever else. And I think a true leader is very selfless in that sense, that they want everybody to do really well. And they don't need to take the credit. They have their own internal confidence. And because of that, they push everyone else to do well. And they have what Covey calls abundance mentality, because they have confidence that they want more and more for everybody. They don't look at what scarcity mentality is. There's only so much, and if you get a bit more, I get a bit less. And when I first came to Fletcher's, that's what the sales team thought. It was completely scarcity mentality. And I had to change that thinking from inside out to realize that abundance mentality is what wins. If you get a board, I get more boards. You get more boards, I get more boards, not the reverse. And there's enough for all of us. And yeah, I think confidence is critical. Anybody else have that on their list?
I did, Bradley.
Yeah,
Michelle,
go ahead.
yeah. I think it's so true. The confidence is not given. When I was younger, when I was in school, I was always thinking, until you achieve something, then you can have the confidence. But obviously, you achieve more, you have more confidence. But it's actually, you can make a decision yourself. I decided I'm going to be confident, and then the better I can be, I try my best. So it's not wait around waiting for a turning point, something happened, then you can be confident. You can do it today, now. So I think that's a really good one.
Yeah, and that's that internal self-confidence. You know, the more self-confidence you have, the better you do. The better you do, the more confidence you have. It's, you know, a fascinating thing. It's kind of this, and if you have self-doubt or you lack confidence, then things go down. You don't feel, I can go and do this because, you know, I'm not confident. And when you have confidence, and the confidence, excuse me, should be tempered with reality. You know, if I'm a 25-year-old salesperson who's just entering the industry and I'm going up against the director of Fletcher's, that's a bit overconfident. You'd be smarter to use wisdom and take somebody in with you to win the business rather than thinking you can do it. So confidence should be measured against skill and you know, but critical. Before we move on, anyone else have anything on confidence?
I did too there as well, Bradley. George here.
Hey, George.
I often link initiative and confidence together. I find that if you take the initiative to ask the questions and, you know, well, I guess a background of me, I'm a baby in the industry and I'm a pretty loud Italian. So a lot of people mistake my confidence for arrogance sometimes. And I often find myself holding back and not asking the question and not taking the initiative because I find myself being, you know, perceived in the wrong manner. So that definitely hurts the confidence. But like you just said, if you don't take the initiative, if you don't ask the question, if you don't build your own internal, you know, self-belief, it shows, and it certainly expresses onto the buyers or prospective vendors and clients.
Absolutely. I'm going to give you two quotes. One from my mother: worst they can do is say no. Like, ask the question. And Wayne Gretzky, the famous sports quote, the greatest hockey player ever who said, I missed 100% of the shots I never took.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I agree completely. And yeah, last one, keep moving, it's 5 o'clock. Competitive greatness. Perform at your best when your best is required. Your best is required each and every day, basically. In other words, don't leave it at home. Don't give half-assed effort. Don't go into an appointment, a job interview, dealing with a vendor, a landlord, a tenant, and give it a half approach, because they'll know it, you'll know it, you won't get the outcome you want. We get the best outcomes when we give it our best shot. And you know, one thing that people that work for me know is I'm not particularly tolerant of people taking the easy road or just trying to do things half-assed, you know, because it doesn't work. And people around you see it for what it is. Who picked competitive greatness as one of their key points?
I did, Bradley.
Yep.
I think, you know, sometimes we can forget, whether it's real estate or anything in life, that for someone else it could be their first experience, their first time of something. So if you go to a restaurant, for example, and the waiter's having a bad night and it shines across to you, it sort of ruins it for everyone around. So I think no matter what you do in life, you've got to really give it everything, because you'll be letting yourself down and other people around you.
Agree 100%. You get out what you give in, you know. What else? Anyone else have anything on competitive greatness?
Yes, I had that competitive greatness. It comes easily, but I can see that the competitive greatness, when I wrote down about it, I was really understanding about myself and how I've been quite competitive in the past. And a lot of it was to do with feeling confidence, to boost my confidence, which is something that Michelle touched on. But I also see that, you know, the drive for that comes from your enthusiasm and your industriousness, you know, and your intentions, your initiative, all of that. And you know, it's just when you give everything of yourself for someone, for your client, for your vendor, the reward is huge, and it's that selflessness. And so being the best you can be for someone else is really incredibly rewarding, but also doing it for yourself as well. It's sort of like everyone's a winner, and taking that skill set into a team environment and helping others to lift up as well.
I think what you said is absolutely true. And you know, it starts with yourself. You want to help others, you want to do the right thing by other people, but it comes from your own pride in yourself to do the best you can possibly do and to be the best you can be. And it's not a selfish thing to want to be, you know, really successful. And being really successful in your definition is to help other people as well to be successful. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. You know, I remember years and years and years ago now, like 12, 13 years ago, Tim Heavyside was a couple years in, and he was starting to get some real traction. And he was standing at my door one day about having lost a listing. And he literally jumped up and down, you know, and said, oh, I lost this listing. And I said, well, Tim, you're doing really well. And, you know, nobody can win them all. And he said, why can't I win them all? I want to win them all. And I thought, yeah, I guess that's true. I mean, each one is an individual effort that you can really win them all. But reality is, you know, you won't. And I said, well, it's great to have that mindset. The reality is you're going to lose some, and you got to just move on. You got to just get on to the next one and not lament over it. The sooner you get over it, and Tim learned over time for himself and with others to be level. He doesn't get crazy wild when he wins a listing. He doesn't get crazy down when he loses a listing. He just stays level, because it helps the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one. Anyone else have anything on competitive greatness before we wrap up? Okay. I hope you got a lot out of the wooden session, and I hope that the pyramid of success is something you print out and have with you. I've got a little plastic version that I have in my wallet. I've also got Covey's 7 Habits in my wallet. And in a non-COVID time, I think we used to make these for you. But having it available, I remember right after the course when Sarah did it, she put it up on her wall, and I think it's still there. You know, thinking about these things doesn't work unless you live them and you think about them a lot. So by printing this out, having it in your face, you'll think about, am I having enough initiative in what I'm doing? Am I showing enough, skill in developing what I need to do? Or, I lost control today. I need to focus more on that. And I think it's a very powerful tool, and it's a very powerful tool for your children to introduce this to them, for them to be able to build this into their life as much as possible. So thank you very much for sharing Wooden with me today. I'll put it in an email, but our next one it was in today's diary note about Powell, and we're going to go through his 20 leadership principles, and again, asking you to choose ones that really resonate with you, and we'll read through those, and we'll probably get through those and start a bit of Cubby on Monday. The recording of this will be available soon. I've got an email all drafted. I just got to wait for the link to come and all that. It'll be sent out to everyone. So thank you all very much. Anyone have any last comment or question before we wrap up?
Just huge thanks. This is amazing. Really appreciate it.
Good. All right. Excellent. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you, Bradley. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.